I'm Stephanie Rozzo. Welcome to Nature Sketch Crate's Weedy Seadragon step-by-step painting instructions video. In this video I'll be showing you how to paint the Weedy Seadragon using the Nature Sketch Crate step-by-step painting instructions. First, collect all your materials and make sure they're ready to go. It's important to remember that this is just a sketch. Take your time, relax, have fun, and don't get too caught up with the details. Let's get started. Step 1. Transfer the image to the watercolor paper. Take your transfer image, tape the top of it to the back of the watercolor paper. Open it up. Place the graphite transfer paper, dark side down, light side up, in between the watercolor paper and the transfer image. Press it down flat, and then you can get started. Just pick any spot. I usually like to work left to right and transfer just a few of those lines. And then once you transfer a couple, and it doesn't have to be exact, if you can't get those lines exact, that's fine. Check and see after you transfer a couple lines that it's actually transferring and that you have the right amount of pressure. You want to use about a medium pressure. So just go through, draw over all those lines. This is a relaxing activity. Just take your time, listen to some music, maybe a podcast or audiobook, and just zone out and relax. Once you think you transferred all the lines, go ahead and flip the image up and down a few times just to see if the lines are transferred. So if you missed any, you can go back and add them. I always end up missing a couple. It looks like I caught them. If I want to add some more lines, I can always do it later as well. I can add these optional hole punch lines, or I can add them at a later time, depending on if I want to put this in my sketchbook. And go ahead and outline the common name and the scientific name if you'd like to add that into your picture. Once all those lines are transferred, go ahead and remove the graphite transfer paper and set it aside for future use. It can be used over again and again and again. And gently remove the tape from the back of the watercolor paper and the tape from the transfer image. You can save the tape as well to use again. And make sure to keep the transfer image to protect your watercolor painting while you're painting. Take your kneaded eraser, you can knead it a bit if it is a little rough or has too much graphite on one end. And you can remove some of these unwanted graphite marks. Don't worry too much about them, but if you'd like to take some of them off, some of those little smudgy marks, you can. This graphite transfer paper is pretty good about not leaving anything, but leaves a little bit. And right here I have a little bit of a line that I transferred twice in two different ways, and I'm just gonna leave that there. I can just keep it and change it later on, but you can erase those kinds of lines if you want. And now we'll move on to step 2. Step 2, paint in the wettest, lightest layer of Seadragon yellow. In order to mix the Seadragon yellow, I just need a few drops of the Hansa yellow medium. Just take a couple of those, mix it with some water. You can use your water brush or a regular paintbrush, just adding a little bit of water to that paint in the palette itself. Dab it off onto your paper towel or your reusable towel. Pick up a little bit more, dab it lightly on your towel, and then apply it to your scrap watercolor paper. Check the color. We'll want to use a really wet color, so we'll want a little bit more water added. I'll pull a little bit of the paint to the side and add some more water to it. Dab it onto my towel and test it on my strip again. I think that looks a little too light, so I'll pick up a little bit more color. Test it on my test strip. It looks pretty good. So I'll go ahead and add it as I see in the image in step 2 on my step-by-step instructions. And that can go just over all those little dots. So probably want to keep some of these kind of white in the snout, but everywhere else, maybe a little bit in the tail as well. But the rest, pretty yellow. Once you've added that to your Seadragon image, you can move on to step 3. Step 3, paint in the Seadragon tan. First, mix the Seadragon tan using the raw umber 33H. Shake it up. Take a drop or 2, add it to your palette. And with a clean paintbrush, add a little bit of water, and then take some of that paint to the side and add a bunch of water, because we're going to want to use the wettest, lightest Seadragon tan, so the wettest, lightest version of this raw umber. Add lots of water, dab it off onto your towel, and test it on your test strip. And you're going to add it to the Seadragon as seen in the image in step 3. And it's going to go mostly on these appendages, which are a bit wing-like. And I'll go on to the snout, kind of going around those spots, but not worrying too much. Just adding it in around. On the lines of the pectoral fin and a little bit on the body. And then on the back rings. And then kind of sparingly throughout the main part of the body here, but on each one of these here, between them. And then you kind of try to go around the spots a little bit. Obviously, you don't need to work on making it too exact. And then here on the back. Top of this tail here. And if you make any mistakes, you put some color where you didn't really want it, don't worry. think I'm supposed to actually leave these just yellow, but I think that they'll look good anyway. So if you do what I did and made a mistake, it's not a problem. And I like to leave my mistakes so that you know you can do this. And if you make a mistake, it's okay. It's just a sketch, it's just a practice for you to get an idea of this animal and learn a little bit about painting. And you could add a little bit here as well. I'm going to pick up a little bit more paint. Top one that I left blank as well. Clean out your brush and let this dry when you're done adding all of that Seadragon tan, and move on to step 4. Step 4, paint in the wettest, lightest Seadragon blue, paint the Seadragon red. So take 2 drops of the turquoise blue, 1, 2. Go ahead and add a little bit of water to that, and like before, bring a little to the side and add lots of water to it. Dab it off onto your towel, pick up a little bit more, dab it lightly on your towel, and test it out. I think that looks good. It looks like the right color. So we'll paint in the wettest, lightest Seadragon blue D as seen in step 4's image. There's a little bit in a lot of different areas. So there's a tiny bit under here, right here, and then here. Clean off your brush after you add the Seadragon blue and mix the Seadragon red. So you'll take a couple drops of the 31H red oxide. Make sure to shake it up just in case some of the paint has settled to the bottom. You can add just one drop of that color if you want, but I like to add 2. Add a little bit of water. Pull it to the side, add a little bit more water. Just so you have a couple different versions of that paint. Clean off your brush, and you're going to use pretty dry concentrated color, dry dark. And so you take that original color without too much water added, test it out on your paint strip, a little bit more, dab it on your towel, test it on your paint strip. It looks good, and it just goes onto the eye. So a little round dot in the middle of the eye, so just kind of trace your brush around it. If you need to, you can roll the tip of your brush onto your towel, and the rolling motion will help you get a nice fine point if needed. Clean off your brush and move on to step 5. Step 5, paint in the Seadragon sepia. First, you want to mix the color. Take the 21H sepia, add a couple drops to your palette, add some water to it. Pull it to the side and add a little bit more water. Dab it off onto your towel and find a color that's like D. Looks pretty good. Pick up a little bit more and paint it in as seen in the image in step 5. And on the snout, you'll want to try to paint around the dots a little bit. If you paint in them, it's totally fine as well. Making mistakes is just fine. Once you've added all the Seadragon and sepia, go ahead and move on to step 6. Step 6, add an even drier, darker Seadragon sepia in blue. As long as the image is dry, you can go ahead and start adding in the sepia, a darker layer of paint. And on the snout, I want to try to keep it on the bottom mostly. I'm going around those dots again as best as you can. Don't worry too much if you end up getting them inside those dots, and then kind of just line the top. You don't have to do that. Bring them down over those dots a little bit too. And then go around the eye a little. Again, kind of trying to avoid the dots, but not being too careful about it. As long as you preserve some of them. If you need to, you can refer to your final reference image instead of just step 6 image. This painting will be unique to you since you were the one painting it, and it's unique to your mood as well. I find my paintings change a bit every time I paint it. Once you've added all the drier, darker, more concentrated sepia, you can pick up a little bit of the drier, darker, more concentrated blue. Tap it on your towel, test it on your watercolor test strip. A little scrap piece of paper. And then go ahead and add it as you see in your final reference image and in step 6. It's not the same as the reference, that's okay. I'm going a little darker today. Again, maybe because my mood is a little different. Clean off your paintbrush and let this dry. Move on to step 7. Step 7, add ink lines and a final layer of Seadragon yellow. So we have the 005 black micron to start. Use your transfer image to protect your painting from any smudges from your hand or any unwanted marks. And just go throughout, look at your final reference image, and if you need to, you can refer to your transfer image as well. Let's go throughout and add those lines. It's a lot like when you were transferring it, but now you're drawing in ink lines instead. Do everything except for outlining the spots. We'll do that with the 01 micron, a little thicker micron. When you're done adding all of the 005 black micron lines, go ahead and move on to the 01 black micron. Use the 01 micron to draw a line around the eye here and thicken some of these lines as you see in your final reference image and in 7A. Make sure to also write in the scientific name. Use the 01 micron to go ahead and outline the spots. And when you're doing that, outline not the spots you transferred with your transfer image, but the spots that are remaining after you paint it. So whatever looks white or yellow. Once you've added all of the 01 lines, and go ahead and add a few 08 lines. Use the black 08 micron to fill in the common name and thicken some of the lines as you see in 7B. So I'm going to go ahead and refer to my final reference image to thicken some of these lines a little bit. This is where it really starts to come together when you add all these ink lines. Once you've added all of your 08 lines, go ahead and add some Seadragon yellow. It'll really make the image pop. Dab it off onto your towel and test it on your test strip to make sure it's the right color, and then pick up a little bit more, dab it on your towel, and apply it. And you can apply it like you see in step 7A. Right over that ink. It is waterproof once it dries. It dries pretty fast. And you can just add it to add some nice highlights throughout. Really brighten up this image a lot. So look at 7B and your final reference image. Make a little mistake and dab your brush into some paint on your towel. You can just dab it up with your towel, the clean spot, and then wait to add paint to that until it dries. Then you can just kind of move on. Be careful not to dab your paintbrush into other paint that's still wet. Always use a clean area. It happens to the best of us though, obviously. I'll come back and paint a little bit more in there. And I'm just adding this all over the place to add some brightness. we're done. Great job. You've created a painting that only you could do. Check out the Nature Sketch Crate website to sign up for our newsletter and to shop for future crates. Next, you have a few options what you can do with your painting. You can send it as a postcard in the mail to a friend. You can punch holes in it and add it to your sketchbook. You can use these optional guidelines and our graphite transfer paper. You can frame it, display it at your house. Also, make sure to share it on our Facebook fan page. Thank you for joining me. I hope you had fun and had a chance to relax a little. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to this YouTube channel.